The diplomatic shuttle descended through Terra Nova's atmosphere like a falling star, its alien hull gleaming against the orange sunset sky. Captain Marcus Chun stood on the landing platform, adjusting his formal uniform one final time. This was humanity's first official diplomatic contact with the Valerian Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. Everything had to be perfect. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Valerian vessel," announced Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, her voice crackling through Chen's earpiece. "Put it through." The holographic projector flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Ambassador Zephyr. The Valerian stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled skin shimmering with a metallic blue hue that spoke of nobility among his kind. For arms gestured gracefully as he spoke, while his large, predatory eyes fixed on Chun with obvious disdain. "Human representative." Zephyr's voice carried the weight of centuries of superiority. "I bring greetings from His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Thaxon the Conqueror. As is custom when establishing diplomatic relations with lesser civilizations, we offer a gift to demonstrate our benevolence." Chun felt his jaw tighten at the condescending tone, but maintained his diplomatic composure. "We are honored by your gesture, Ambassador. What gift does your empire bestow upon humanity?" A cruel smile spread across Zephyr's features. "My own daughter, Princess Lyra Zephyria. She will serve as a permanent diplomatic liaison between our peoples." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Chun staring at the empty air where the hologram had been. Something about the ambassador's expression troubled him deeply. There had been no pride in Zephyr's voice when speaking of his daughter, no warmth. Instead, Chun had detected something that chilled him to the bone: mockery. The shuttle's landing thrusters engaged with a thunderous roar, kicking up clouds of red dust across the platform. As the engines powered down, a ramp extended from the vessel's belly. Chun watched, surrounded by his diplomatic team and a contingent of Terra Nova's finest honor guard, as a single figure emerged from the shadows of the ship's interior. Princess Lyra Zephyria was nothing like what Chun had expected from Valerian royalty. Where her father had been tall and imposing, she stood barely 6 feet in height, short by Valerian standards. Her scales, instead of the brilliant blue that marked noble birth, were a muted silver gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But what struck Chun most profoundly were her eyes, or rather, the intricate metal device that covered them completely. The princess moved with careful, measured steps, one hand trailing along a guidance rod that extended from her hip. Her other hand held a small device that emitted soft clicking sounds at regular intervals. Chun realized with dawning horror that she was blind. "Jesus Christ," whispered Rodriguez behind him. "She's disabled." Chun's mind raced as the implications became clear. This wasn't a gift. It was an insult of the highest order. The Valorians had sent him their damaged, unwanted princess as a mockery of human diplomatic efforts. They expected him to be offended, to reject her, and provide them with justification for considering humanity beneath their notice. But as Princess Lyra reached the bottom of the ramp and stood there alone and vulnerable on an alien world, something stirred in Chen's chest that had nothing to do with diplomacy and everything to do with basic human decency. The princess spoke, her voice carrying a melodic quality that was hauntingly beautiful despite its uncertainty. "I am Princess Lyra Zephyria of the Valerian Empire. I seek the human representative, Captain Marcus Chun." "I am Captain Chun, Your Highness," he replied, stepping forward. "Welcome to Terra Nova." He watched as relief flooded her features, her posture relaxing slightly. "Thank you, Captain. I apologize for any inconvenience my presence may cause. I understand this arrangement may not be what your people expected." The careful way she chose her words told Chun everything he needed to know. She was aware of what her father had done, aware that she had been sent as a cruel joke. The pain in her voice, barely concealed beneath layers of royal dignity, made his decision for him. "Your Highness," Chun said formally, loud enough for his entire team to hear, "Terra Nova is honored to welcome you as our first Valerian diplomatic liaison. We have prepared quarters befitting your station and, Look forward to learning from your wisdom and experience." A gasp of surprise escaped the princess's lips. You truly welcome me?" "Ido," Chen replied firmly. "And I speak for all of humanity when I say that we judge individuals by their character and capabilities, not by any perceived limitations others might see." Dr. Emily Watson, Terra Nova's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward from the diplomatic team. She had been studying Valerian physiology for months in preparation for this moment. What she saw now filled her with both scientific curiosity and deep concern. The metal device covering the princess's eyes was clearly of Valerian design, but its construction was crude, almost brutal. It appeared to have been grafted directly onto her skull, leaving visible scars around the edges where flesh met metal. The device served as both a visual aid and a mark of shame, a permanent reminder of her perceived inadequacy. "Your Highness," Dr. Watson said gently, "I'm Dr. Emily Watson, Terra Nova's chief medical officer. If I may ask, what happened to your eyes?" Princess Lyra hesitated, her hand unconsciously reaching up to touch the edge of the metal device. "I was born with what my people call the blindness of the weak, a genetic defect that appears rarely in our bloodline. My optical nerves were severed shortly after birth to prevent the condition from spreading to future generations." The casual way she described such brutality made Watson's stomach turn. Among humans, such a birth defect would have been seen as a challenge to overcome, not a reason for mutilation. The fact that the princess's own people had deliberately destroyed any chance of treating her condition spoke volumes about Valerian society's approach to perceived weakness. Shun gestured toward the waiting ground vehicles. "Shall we proceed to your quarters, Your Highness? I'm sure you're tired after your journey." "Yes, thank you," Lyra replied, then paused. "Captain Shun, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you being kind to me? Surely you understand what my presence here represents." Shin considered his words carefully. "Your Highness, among humans, we have a saying, never judge a book by its cover. It means we believe the true worth of a person cannot be determined by their appearance or perceived limitations. We prefer to discover someone's value through their actions and character." "That is a strange concept," Lyra admitted. "Among my people, weakness is considered a contamination that threatens the strength of all society." "Then, perhaps," Chan said as he gently guided her toward the transport vehicle, "your people have much to learn from humanity, just as we have much to learn from you." The journey to the diplomatic quarters took them through the heart of New Geneva, Terra Nova's capital city. Princess Lyra sat quietly in the transport, her enhanced hearing picking up the sounds of human civilization around her. The constant hum of activity was unlike anything she had experienced on Valoria, where strict social hierarchies meant that those deemed inferior were kept out of sight and hearing of their betters. "What do you hear, Your Highness?" asked Dr. Watson, who had noticed the princess's intense concentration. "So many voices," Lyra replied wonderingly. "Young and old, speaking freely together. On my homeworld, children are separated from adults until they prove their worth through combat trials. The elderly are retired once they can no longer contribute to society's strength." The euphemism didn't fool anyone in the transport. Shin exchanged a grim look with his team. The Valorians apparently disposed of their elderly population rather than care for them in their declining years. "Here," Chun said, "age brings wisdom, and we value the guidance of our elders. Children are considered precious, regardless of their abilities, even if they are born with defects." Especially then, Dr. Watson interjected firmly. "We believe that overcoming challenges makes us stronger as individuals and as a species." Princess Lyra fell silent, processing this information. Her entire worldview, shaped by a lifetime of being told she was worthless, was being challenged by these humans who spoke of value and weakness and strength through adversity. The diplomatic residence was a marvel of human engineering, designed to accommodate visitors from various species while maintaining the comfort and security necessary for sensitive negotiations. Chun had personally overseen modifications to ensure the princess's quarters would be accessible despite her visual impairment. Your chambers have been equipped with tactile guidance systems and audio descriptions of the layout, Chun explained as they entered the main hall. Dr. Watson has also prepared medical scanning equipment if you wish to have your condition examined by human physicians. You would waste medical resources on someone like me? Lyra asked, genuine surprise coloring her voice. Your Highness, Dr. Watson said with conviction, healing isn't a waste. It's the foundation of civilization. Our greatest achievements have come not from discarding those who struggle, but from finding ways to help them thrive. As they reached the princess's quarters, Chen activated the room's orientation system. A gentle female voice began describing the layout, the location of furniture, environmental controls, and emergency procedures. Princess Lyra listened with growing amazement. This is all for me, she whispered. This is the standard of care we provide for all our diplomatic guests, Chen replied. But, yes, these specific accommodations were designed with your needs in mind. Princess Lyra moved through the space slowly, her hands exploring the furniture and walls. Everything had been designed with her limitations in mind, yet nothing felt patronizing or crude. The Valerian princess had spent her entire life navigating a world that saw her as an obstacle to be avoided. Here, for the first time, she found a space that had been crafted specifically to help her succeed. Captain Chun, she said finally, her voice thick with emotion, I must confess something to you. My father did not send me here as an honor. He expected you to reject me, to provide him with justification for dismissing humanity as weak and sentimental. I am not a gift. I am a test you were meant to fail. Chun nodded solemnly. I suspected as much, Your Highness. The question is, what do you intend to do about it? I don't understand. You're here now, whether by honor or as an insult. You can choose to fulfill your father's expectations, or you can choose to forge your own path. The decision is yours. Princess Lyra stood in the center of her new quarters, surrounded by evidence of human kindness and ingenuity. For the first time in her life, someone was offering her a choice, not as a disabled princess to be pitted or mocked, but as an individual capable of determining her own future. I choose, she said with growing strength in her voice, to discover what humans and Valorians might accomplish together, despite what either of our peoples might expect. Chin smiled, knowing that this moment marked the beginning of something extraordinary. Ambassador Zephyr had intended to humiliate humanity by sending his worthless daughter. Instead, he had unknowingly provided them with their greatest opportunity to prove that human civilization was built on principles that could change the galaxy itself. As night fell over Terra Nova, Princess Lyra Zephyria prepared for her first full day as humanity's newest ally. Tomorrow would bring challenges, discoveries, and the beginning of a partnership that would reshape everything both species believed about strength, worth, and the true meaning of civilization. The unwanted gift had been received, accepted, and treasured. Now it remained to be seen what miracles could emerge from such an unlikely beginning. The morning sun cast long shadows across the research facility as Dr. Emily Watson prepared for what might be the most important medical examination of her career. Princess Lyra had agreed to undergo a comprehensive evaluation, something that would have been unthinkable on her homeworld where her condition was considered a shameful mark of genetic weakness. Are you certain about this, Your Highness? Watson asked as she calibrated the scanning equipment. The examination will be thorough, and some of the procedures might be uncomfortable. Princess Lyra sat perfectly still on the examination table, her enhanced hearing picking up the subtle hums and clicks of unfamiliar medical equipment. Dr. Watson, for 23 years, I have been told that my condition is permanent and irreversible. If there is even the smallest chance that human medicine might offer insight, I am willing to endure any discomfort. Captain Chun observed from the corner of the room, accompanied by Dr. James Park, Terra Nova's leading neurological surgeon. The team had spent the night reviewing everything they knew about Valerian physiology, preparing for this moment. Let's start with basic scans, Watson announced, activating the quantum resonance imaging system. This will map your neural pathways and show us exactly what we're dealing with. As the scanners hummed to life, Princess Lyra tensed slightly. On Valoria, medical examinations were brutal affairs designed to identify weakness for elimination rather than treatment for recovery. The gentle, non-invasive nature of human medical technology was completely foreign to her. "Remarkable," Dr. Park whispered as the first images appeared on the holographic display. "Captain, you need to see this." Chun moved closer to examine the three-dimensional representation of the princess's neural structure. Even to his untrained eye, something seemed profoundly wrong with what he was seeing. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" The princess's optical nerves weren't severed by genetic defect, Park explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. They were cut deliberately, with surgical precision. But, look here, he highlighted a series of neural pathways. The organic nerve endings are still intact. They've been trying to regenerate for over 2 decades. Princess Lyra's breathing quickened. "What does that mean?" Watson exchanged glances with her colleague before answering. "Your Highness, it means your blindness was artificially induced. Your optical nerves were surgically severed, probably when you were very young, and then that device was implanted to prevent natural healing." The silence in the room was deafening. Princess Lyra raised one trembling hand to touch the metal device grafted to her skull. "You're saying I wasn't born blind?" "The genetic markers we're seeing suggest you were born with enhanced optical processing capabilities," Park continued gently. "Your people didn't sever your nerves to prevent weakness from spreading. They did it because your visual abilities would have been far superior to normal Valerian sight." Chun felt a cold rage building in his chest. They mutilated their own princess because she was too gifted. Among Valorians, standing out as exceptional can be as dangerous as being considered weak, Lyra said quietly. "My father rules through fear and conformity. A child who could see more clearly than others might eventually see through his deceptions." Dr. Watson continued her scans, documenting the full extent of the damage and the remarkable regenerative attempts the princess's body had been making for decades. The neural pathways have been trying to reroute around the artificial barriers. "It's extraordinary. Your brain has been creating new connections constantly. Can anything be done?" Chin asked the question that hung heavy in the air. "Theoretically, yes," Park replied. "The regenerative attempts suggest her natural healing factor is incredibly strong. If we could remove the inhibiting device and provide the proper neural scaffolding, there's a good chance we could restore significant visual function." Princess Lyra sat perfectly still, processing information that challenged everything she had believed about herself for over 2 decades. "And if the procedure fails, your condition wouldn't be any worse than it is now," Watson assured her. "But, Your Highness, there's something else we discovered that you need to know about." The doctor activated another set of scans, these focused on the princess's auditory and tactile processing centers. The images that appeared made even Chen gasp in amazement. "Your enhanced senses aren't just compensation for lost vision," Watson explained. "Your brain has been developing abilities that go far beyond normal Valerian capabilities. Your auditory processing is so advanced that you can essentially see your environment through sound waves. The tactile sensitivity in your hands is comparable to our most sophisticated scanning equipment." "I don't understand," Lyra said, confusion evident in her voice. "Your Highness," Chun said with growing excitement, "you're not disabled. You're differently abled. Your brain has spent decades developing capabilities that most people can't even imagine." To demonstrate, Dr. Park activated a series of tests designed to measure the princess's enhanced abilities. He placed objects around the room without telling her their location or nature, then asked her to describe what she sensed. "There's a metallic cube approximately 4 inches on each side, sitting on the table to my left," Lyra said after a moment of concentration. "The metal composition suggests it's an alloy of titanium and vanadium. There's also a flowering plant near the window, a rose bush, I believe, based on the scent pattern and the subtle sound variations caused by the flower petals." Dr. Watson checked her instruments. The princess had described both objects with perfect accuracy, including details that shouldn't have been perceptible through normal senses. How did you know about the metal composition? Park asked, fascinated. Different metals produce different resonance patterns when sound waves interact with them. Lyra explained matter-of-factly. I learned to distinguish them years ago. It's useful for avoiding hazards in palaces where poison can be hidden in seemingly innocent decorations. Chen shook his head in wonder. Your Highness, these aren't the abilities of someone with a disability. These are the abilities of someone with enhanced sensory processing that most people would consider superhuman. But I cannot see, Lyra protested. In Valerian society, vision is considered the most important sense for a warrior. Maybe that's because your society has never encountered someone with your particular gifts, Watson suggested. Among humans, we've learned that diversity of abilities makes us stronger, not weaker. To prove her point, Watson activated a complex holographic maze that filled half the room. This is a navigation exercise our pilots use for training. Most sighted individuals require several attempts to complete it successfully. Princess Lyra stood and approached the maze entrance, her enhanced hearing immediately analyzing the space around her. Within moments, she was moving through the complex three-dimensional structure with fluid grace, avoiding obstacles, and finding pathways that even Chun couldn't see clearly. Incredible, Park murmured. She's not just navigating. She's using optimal pathways that suggest she understands the entire structure simultaneously. The princess completed the maze in record time, emerging on the other side with barely elevated breathing. The acoustic patterns made the structure quite clear, she said simply. Your Highness, Chun said with conviction, I think it's time we showed you what human engineering can accomplish when we design technology to enhance abilities rather than suppress them. He led the group to Terra Nova's Advanced Technology Center, where human engineers had been developing sensory enhancement systems for various applications. Dr. Sarah Kim, the facility's chief engineer, met them at the entrance. Your Highness, Kim said with evident excitement, we've been working on something that might interest you. Our acoustic mapping technology was originally developed for deep space exploration, but we believe it could be adapted to work with your enhanced auditory processing. She led them to a laboratory where a sleek headset rested on a workbench. Unlike the crude metal device grafted to Lyra's skull, this equipment was elegant and non-invasive. This system enhances natural echolocation abilities, Kim explained. It generates subtle acoustic pulses and interprets the returning echoes to create detailed environmental maps. For someone with your auditory sensitivity, it could provide information comparable to vision, possibly better. Princess Lyra examined the device with her hands, marveling at its sophisticated yet gentle design. It wouldn't require surgical implantation? Absolutely not, Kim assured her. We believe technology should adapt to people, not the other way around. With careful supervision, they fitted the princess with the experimental headset. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. For the first time in over 20 years, Princess Lyra could see her surroundings with startling clarity. The detail is extraordinary, she whispered, turning her head to examine the room. I can perceive textures, densities, even the subtle movements of air currents. This is far superior to normal vision. Chun watched as the princess moved through the laboratory with newfound confidence, her enhanced abilities now augmented by human technology designed to support rather than suppress her gifts. Your Highness, he said, I believe you're going to revolutionize how both our species understand the potential of adaptive technology. More than that, Dr. Watson added, you're going to show the galaxy that strength comes in many forms, and that what some call weakness others call wonder. Princess Lyra stood in the center of the laboratory, surrounded by humans who saw her gifts as valuable rather than shameful. For the first time in her life, she was beginning to understand that her father's cruelty might have accidentally created something extraordinary. Captain Chun, she said with growing determination, I wish to learn everything about human approaches to adaptive technology and inclusive design. If I am to serve as a liaison between our peoples, I want to understand how your civilization has learned to value diversity. It would be our honor to teach you, Chen replied. But I suspect we'll learn far more from you than you will from us. As the day progressed, word of the princess's remarkable abilities spread throughout Terra Nova's scientific community. Researchers who had spent years developing assistive technologies were amazed to discover someone whose natural adaptations exceeded their most advanced inventions. Dr. Martinez from the Acoustic Engineering Department spent hours with Princess Lyra, documenting her ability to distinguish between materials, identify structural weaknesses in buildings, and even detect emotional states in people based on subtle changes in their breathing and heart rate patterns. Your Highness, Martinez said as he reviewed his data, your capabilities suggest that Valerian neurology might be far more advanced than we initially understood. The fact that your people would suppress such abilities speaks to a fundamental misunderstanding of their own potential. Or perhaps, Lyra replied thoughtfully, it speaks to their fear of what that potential might accomplish if allowed to develop freely. That evening, as Terra Nova's twin moons rose over the research facility, Princess Lyra stood in her quarters contemplating the revelations of the day. The acoustic enhancement headset rested on her desk, a symbol of human ingenuity and acceptance. A soft chime announced Captain Chen's arrival. Your Highness, I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, Captain. I was just thinking about everything we've discovered today. Chen entered and took a seat across from her. How are you feeling about all this? Overwhelmed, she admitted. For over 20 years, I believed I was a burden, a genetic failure who survived only through my father's reluctant mercy. Today, I learned that I possess capabilities my people would consider extraordinary, and that humans have the wisdom to recognize and enhance those gifts rather than fear them. Your father was wrong about many things, Chen said gently, but perhaps his greatest mistake was underestimating both your potential and humanity's ability to recognize it. Princess Lyra nodded, her hand unconsciously reaching for the enhancement headset. Captain, I want to propose something that might benefit both our peoples. I'm listening. Tomorrow, I would like to begin documenting everything I've learned about human approaches to adaptive technology and inclusive design. I want to create a comprehensive report that demonstrates how diversity of abilities can be transformed from perceived weakness into extraordinary strength. Chen smiled. You want to show the galaxy a different way of thinking about capability and worth. Exactly. If other civilizations could see what humans have accomplished by embracing rather than fearing differences, it might change how countless individuals are treated across the known galaxy. Your Highness, Chen said with deep respect, I believe you're going to be far more than a diplomatic liaison between our peoples. You're going to be an ambassador for a completely new understanding of what it means to be strong. As Captain Chen left her quarters, Princess Lyra activated the enhancement headset one more time, marveling at the richness of perception it provided. Tomorrow would bring new discoveries, new possibilities, and the beginning of a mission that could transform not just Valorian human relations, but the fundamental beliefs of countless civilizations across the galaxy. Ambassador Zephyr had sent his daughter as a cruel joke, expecting her to embarrass humanity and justify Valerian superiority. Instead, he had inadvertently provided both species with the key to unlocking potentials neither had imagined possible. The unwanted princess was becoming exactly what the galaxy needed most. Proof that strength and worth came in infinite forms, and that the greatest civilizations were those wise enough to nurture every gift they discovered. 3 weeks had passed since Princess Lyra's arrival on Terra Nova, and the transformation in both her capabilities and confidence had been remarkable. The acoustic enhancement technology had allowed her to function with abilities that exceeded normal vision, while her documentation of human adaptive technologies was becoming a comprehensive guide that could revolutionize how civilizations approach diversity. Captain Chen was reviewing her latest reports when Lieutenant Rodriguez burst into his office, her face pale with urgency. Sir, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive Valerian fleet approaching our system. They'll be here within 6 hours. Chen's blood ran cold. How massive? 3 dreadnoughts, 12 battle cruisers, and at least 40 support vessels. Sir, that's enough firepower to reduce our entire colony to ash. Give me Princess Lyra immediately, Chen ordered, and convene an emergency session of the Planetary Council. Within an hour, Terra Nova's leadership had assembled in the main conference room. Princess Lyra entered with Dr. Watson, wearing her enhancement headset and moving with the confident grace that had developed over the past weeks. The change in her demeanor was striking. Gone was the uncertain, defeated princess who had arrived as an unwanted gift. In her place stood someone who had discovered her own worth and purpose. Your Highness, Chun said grimly, we've detected a large Valerian fleet approaching our system. Do you have any insight into their intentions? Princess Lyra's expression grew troubled as she processed the information. A fleet of that size suggests my father is making a show of force. Captain, I fear my presence here has been reported back to the Empire, and my father is displeased with how you've received me. Meaning he expected you to reject me, to treat me as the worthless burden he believes me to be. Instead, reports have reached him that I'm being treated with honor and respect. This threatens his carefully constructed narrative about human weakness and sentimentality. Governor Sarah Matthews, Terra Nova's elected leader, leaned forward with concern. Princess, what exactly are we dealing with here? My father rules through demonstration of absolute power, Lyra explained. If humans can see worth where he sees weakness, it suggests that his judgment might be flawed. He cannot allow that possibility to stand unchallenged. Chun felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. So he's coming to prove that we're too weak to deserve respect. More than that, Lyra said quietly, he's coming to test whether humans truly believe the principles they've shown me, or whether you'll abandon them when faced with overwhelming force. Dr. Park, who had been monitoring communications, looked up from his console. We're receiving a transmission from the fleet commander. It's Ambassador Zephyr himself. Put it through, Chen ordered. The holographic projector activated, revealing Ambassador Zephyr in full military regalia aboard what was clearly a Valerian dreadnought's bridge. His 4 arms gestured imperiously as he spoke, while rows of armed Valerian warriors stood at attention behind him. Captain Chun of the humans, Zephyr's voice carried across space with unmistakable menace. I come to retrieve my daughter and to conduct a proper assessment of your species' worthiness for diplomatic relations. Ambassador, Chun replied carefully. Princess Lyra is welcome to return with you at any time, though she's been a valued guest and productive diplomatic liaison during her stay with us. Liaison. Zephyr's laugh was harsh and mocking. My defective daughter serves no diplomatic function. She was sent to test whether your species possesses the wisdom to recognize worthlessness when presented with it. Your failure to reject her demonstrates dangerous weakness in judgment. Princess Lyra stepped into view of the transmission, her enhanced senses allowing her to see her father's reaction through the acoustic patterns of the audio feed. Father, perhaps the humans see something you have overlooked. Silence. Zephyr roared. You speak only when granted permission, defective one. Captain Chun, you will surrender my daughter and submit your colony to Valerian authority as penance for your species' fundamental weakness. And if we refuse? Chun asked, though he already knew the answer. Then, I will demonstrate why the strong rule and the weak serve. You have until sunset on your planet to comply. The transmission ended, leaving the conference room in tense silence. Governor Matthews was the first to speak. Captain, our defense fleet consists of 12 patrol vessels and 3 outdated frigates. We can't possibly stand against a force of that magnitude. No, Chin agreed, not in direct combat. But perhaps we don't need to. Princess Lyra moved to the tactical display, her enhanced hearing analyzing the acoustic properties of the holographic projections to understand fleet positioning and ship configurations. Captain, she said thoughtfully, May I suggest an alternative approach? I'm listening, Your Highness. My father believes he's demonstrating Valerian superiority over human weakness. What if instead we demonstrate human strength in a way he cannot comprehend? Chen studied the princess's expression, seeing the keen intelligence that her father had tried so hard to suppress. What do you have in mind? My father's entire worldview is based on the assumption that strength comes from the ability to destroy those who are different or weaker. He cannot conceive of a civilization that derives strength from protecting and nurturing those who struggle. Dr. Watson leaned forward. You're suggesting we turn this into a demonstration of human values rather than a military confrontation. Exactly, Lyra confirmed. But to do that, I need to ask something difficult of all of you. What's that, Your Highness? Princess Lyra took a deep breath before continuing. I need you to trust me completely, even though what I'm about to propose will seem like surrender. The next few hours were spent in intense preparation. Princess Lyra worked with Terra Nova's engineers to modify her enhancement headset with additional capabilities, while the colony's leadership struggled with the most difficult decision in their history. As Valerian ships took positions around Terra Nova, Captain Shin stood on the same landing platform where he had first welcomed Princess Lyra. This time, however, he wasn't alone. The entire population of New Geneva had gathered to witness whatever was about to unfold. Thousands of humans stood together, young and old, healthy and struggling, brilliant and average, successful and still searching for their place in the world. It was exactly the kind of gathering that Valerian society would never permit, where those deemed weak would be hidden away to avoid contaminating the strong. Princess Lyra stood beside Chun, wearing her enhancement headset and a specially modified communication device that would broadcast her words to both the human population and the Valerian fleet. Your Highness, Chen said quietly, are you certain about this plan? Captain, for 23 years, I believed my father's definition of strength and worth. These past weeks have shown me a different truth. Now it's time to test whether that truth is powerful enough to change minds that have been closed for centuries. The Valerian fleet began its descent, massive ships blotting out the afternoon sky. Ambassador Zephyr's flagship landed with enough force to crack the platform's surface, its weapon systems visibly powered and ready for immediate use. The Ambassador emerged flanked by 24 elite warriors, each standing over 8 feet tall and armed with weapons capable of devastating destruction. Their scaled armor gleamed with the metallic blue that marked the highest levels of Valerian nobility. Captain Chun, Zephyr announced as he approached, I trust you have prepared for the surrender of your colony and the return of my worthless daughter. Ambassador, Chun replied formally, we are prepared to demonstrate why Princess Lyra has chosen to remain with us as our diplomatic liaison. Zephyr's expression darkened. She has no choice in this matter. She is property of the Valerian Empire, sent here to test your judgment. Your failure to reject her proves your species lacks the wisdom to exist independently. Father, Princess Lyra said, stepping forward with confidence that surprised everyone who had known her before her transformation, perhaps it is time you learned what true strength looks like. Before Zephyr could respond, the princess activated her modified communication system. Her voice echoed across the gathering, carried by speakers that ensured every human and Valerian could hear her clearly. Citizens of Terra Nova, she began. 3 weeks ago, I arrived on your world as what my father intended to be a cruel joke. I was blind, scarred, and considered worthless by my own people. I expected rejection, mockery, or at best reluctant tolerance. The crowd listened intently as she continued. Instead, I discovered a civilization that sees strength where others see weakness, potential where others see failure, and worth where others see burden. I learned that my blindness was artificially created to prevent abilities my father feared. I discovered that what Valerian society calls defects, human society calls gifts. Ambassador Zephyr gestured angrily to his warriors. Enough of this weakness. Seize the defective one and prepare these humans for subjugation. But, Princess Lyra wasn't finished. Father, you came here to demonstrate Valerian strength through the ability to destroy those who are different. Allow me to demonstrate human strength through their ability to protect and nurture those who struggle. She activated her enhancement headset's full capability, interfacing with Terra Nova's communication network to broadcast what she was about to reveal across the galaxy. Hundreds of civilizations would witness what happened next. I challenge you to single combat, she announced, her words causing gasps of shock from both humans and Valorians. If Valerian strength is superior to human wisdom, then surely the mightiest ambassador of the Empire could defeat one blind, defective princess. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Zephyr stared at his daughter in complete bewilderment. In Valerian society, challenges from the weak to the strong were impossible. The weak lacked the right to challenge anyone. You dare, he whispered in disbelief. I dare because humans taught me that worth isn't determined by physical capability, but by the courage to stand for what is right, Lyra replied. I challenge you not as a weak daughter seeking your approval, but as a representative of every individual you have deemed worthless. The tactical brilliance of her move became clear as murmurs spread through the Valerian ranks. By issuing a formal challenge, she had invoked ancient combat laws that even Ambassador Zephyr couldn't ignore without appearing weak himself. If he refused to fight a blind princess, his own warriors would question his strength. Very well, Zephyr snarled, drawing a massive energy blade that hummed with lethal power. I will demonstrate what happens to the weak who forget their place. But Princess Lyra had spent weeks learning human approaches to conflict resolution. As her father advanced with his weapon raised, she did something no Valerian warrior had ever encountered before. She knelt. Father, she said clearly, I surrender completely. I offer no resistance to your strength. Strike me down if that is what Valerian honor requires. Zephyr stopped, his weapon raised but uncertain. Around him, his warriors watched with growing confusion. This wasn't how combat worked in their experience. What trick is this? He demanded. No trick, Lyra replied, still kneeling with her head bowed. I am demonstrating what humans call moral courage, the strength to remain true to one's principles even when facing destruction. She raised her head, her modified headset allowing her to see the confusion and uncertainty spreading through the Valerian ranks. You taught me that I was worthless, Father, but humans taught me that every life has value. You taught me that weakness must be eliminated, but humans taught me that protecting the weak makes society stronger. You came here to prove that might makes right. I am proving that right makes might. The standoff continued for long moments as Ambassador Zephyr struggled with a situation completely outside his experience. His entire worldview was based on the strong dominating the weak. But what happened when the weak refused to fight back, choosing instead to demonstrate principles that made their opponent's actions appear cruel and senseless? Strike her down and be done with it, one of his warriors suggested, but even as he spoke, doubt was evident in his voice. Captain Chin watched the scene unfold, understanding now why Princess Lyra had needed their complete trust. She wasn't just challenging her father, she was challenging the fundamental beliefs of an entire civilization, and doing so in a way that would be broadcast across the galaxy. Millions of beings are watching this moment, Chin announced, his voice carrying clearly across the platform. They're seeing whether strength comes from the ability to destroy those who cannot fight back, or from the wisdom to protect those who choose not to. Ambassador Zephyr looked around at his warriors, seeing doubt in their eyes for the first time in his career. His daughter knelt before him, defenseless and unresisting, yet somehow making him appear weak simply by refusing to meet his strength with matching violence. Rise and defend yourself, he commanded. I cannot, Father, Lyra replied calmly. Humans taught me that true strength lies in protecting others, not in proving one's power over them. If you must kill me to maintain your beliefs, then do so. But know that your action will be remembered across the galaxy as the moment when Valerian's strength revealed itself to be nothing more than the fear of appearing weak. The weapon trembled in Zephyr's hands as the terrible mathematics of the situation became clear. If he struck down his defenseless daughter, he would be seen across the galaxy as a monster. If he spared her, he would be admitting that human principles had value his own culture lacked. It was Princess Lyra who provided the solution, rising to her feet with elegant grace. "Father, there's a third option," she said, extending her hand toward him. "Learn." The single word hung in the air like a challenge more profound than any combat. Around them, humans and Valorians alike waited to see whether fear would triumph over wisdom, whether hatred could overcome hope. What happened next would determine not just the fate of Terra Nova, but the future relationship between two civilizations that had never imagined they might have something to learn from each other. Ambassador Zephyr stood frozen, his weapon still raised, while his daughter offered him the most difficult choice of his life. The chance to discover whether strength could be redefined and whether a father could learn wisdom from the daughter he had discarded as worthless. The galaxy watched and waited for his answer. The tension on the landing platform was suffocating as Ambassador Zephyr stood motionless, his energy blade humming with lethal power while his daughter's outstretched hand waited for his decision. The thousands of humans gathered around them maintained absolute silence, understanding instinctively that this moment would determine the future of two civilizations. Princess Lyra remained perfectly still, her enhanced senses reading every acoustic pattern, every shift in breathing, every subtle change in the electromagnetic field generated by her father's weapon. She could sense his internal struggle, the way his entire worldview was being challenged by a situation he had never imagined possible. "Father," she said softly, "I know this is difficult. For centuries, Valerian society has taught that strength comes from the ability to eliminate weakness. But what if we've been wrong? What if true strength comes from the courage to admit when we need to learn something new?" Ambassador Zephyr's warriors watched their commander with growing uncertainty. Several had lowered their weapons, clearly troubled by the scene unfolding before them. In Valerian culture, the strong were supposed to protect their authority by demonstrating superiority over the weak. But striking down a defenseless, kneeling opponent, especially one's own daughter, violated even their harsh moral codes. "This is manipulation," Zephyr said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "You seek to make me appear weak in front of my warriors." "No, Father," Lyra replied with gentle firmness. "I seek to show you what humans showed me, that true strength is measured not by who you can defeat, but by who you choose to protect and nurture." Captain Shin stepped forward carefully, knowing that any sudden movement might trigger violence that would doom them all. "Ambassador, your daughter has spent these past weeks demonstrating capabilities that your own society failed to recognize. Perhaps it's time to consider that your civilization might benefit from a different perspective on strength and worth." "Speak plainly, human," Zephyr demanded. Chun gestured toward the gathered crowd of colonists. "Look around you, Ambassador. You see weakness because our society includes the elderly, the young, those with disabilities, and those still learning their place in the world. But we see strength because each of these individuals contributes something unique to our civilization. The elderly provide wisdom gained through experience," added Dr. Watson, stepping forward. "The young bring innovation and hope. Those with disabilities often develop capabilities that exceed normal human abilities. Your daughter is living proof of this principle." Princess Lyra activated her enhancement headset, allowing the gathered audience to hear the acoustic mapping system as it painted a detailed picture of their surroundings. Through the speakers, they could hear how she navigated the world with senses far more sophisticated than normal vision. "Listen, Father," she said as the acoustic patterns revealed the locations and even emotional states of everyone present. "This is how I perceive the world now, using abilities that developed because of what you consider my weakness. I can detect structural flaws in buildings that normal vision would miss. I can identify dangerous individuals by the patterns of their heartbeat and breathing. I can navigate in complete darkness or through conditions that would blind normal sight. The demonstration continued as Lyra moved through the crowd with fluid grace, identifying individuals by their unique acoustic signatures and even detecting health problems that the humans themselves weren't aware of. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, stopping beside an elderly colonist, "your heart rhythm suggests you should see Dr. Watson soon. There's an irregularity that might need attention." "Mr. Chen's nephew David," she continued, turning to a young man in the crowd, "you've been favoring your left leg. There's a stress fracture in your right shin that will become a serious injury if not treated." The accuracy of her assessments, confirmed quickly by Dr. Watson's medical scanner, left even the Valerian warriors murmuring in amazement. This was not the worthless, defective princess they had expected to find. "How is this possible?" demanded one of Zephyr's lieutenants. "Because humans don't see disabilities as failures to be hidden," Dr. Park explained. "We see them as differences to be understood and capabilities to be developed." Princess Lyra's enhanced senses didn't develop despite her blindness. They developed because of the unique way her brain adapted to process information. Ambassador Zephyr slowly lowered his weapon, though he didn't deactivate it. "Even if what you claim is true, it changes nothing. The Valerian Empire cannot appear weak by accepting the guidance of defective individuals." "Father," Princess Lyra said with growing confidence, "what if the Empire could appear stronger by demonstrating the wisdom to recognize abilities others have overlooked?" She turned to address the entire gathering, her voice carrying clearly through the communication system. "Citizens of Terra Nova, warriors of the Valerian Empire, beings across the galaxy who are witnessing this moment, I want to share something that might change how we all think about strength and worth." The princess activated a holographic projector that had been prepared for this moment, displaying technical schematics and data that represented weeks of collaboration between human and Valerian technology. "These are the designs for a new type of sensory enhancement system," she announced, "created by combining Valerian biological adaptations with human engineering principles. This technology could provide enhanced capabilities to individuals of any species, allowing them to perceive their environment in ways that exceed normal senses." The implications were staggering. Instead of eliminating those with differences, civilizations could enhance everyone's capabilities by learning from those differences. But more importantly, Lyra continued, "this technology was only possible because humans were willing to see my adaptations as valuable rather than shameful. They spent time understanding how my brain processes information instead of simply accepting that I was broken." She turned back to her father. "Imagine, Father, if the Valerian Empire became known not for its ability to destroy the weak, but for its ability to unlock potential that others had overlooked. Imagine if our civilization became the one that other species sought out when they wanted to help their struggling members thrive instead of merely survive." For the first time in the standoff, Ambassador Zephyr's expression showed uncertainty rather than anger. "You speak of changing fundamental principles that have governed our society for millennia." "Yes," Lyra agreed without hesitation, "because those principles are based on fear. Fear of appearing weak, fear of being different, fear of admitting when we might be wrong. But humans taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to do what's right despite being afraid." Captain Chun sensed the moment had come for humanity's most important diplomatic gesture. "Ambassador Zephyr, I formally request that you and your warriors remain as our guests for 1 week. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as observers. See how our civilization actually functions. Judge for yourself whether our approach to strength and worth has merit." The request was audacious. Zephyr had come to demonstrate Valerian superiority through force. Now, he was being invited to learn whether there might be wisdom in what he had intended to destroy. "And if I decide your way of life is indeed weakness masquerading as strength, then you leave with your daughter and your fleet, and, we'll accept that our philosophies are incompatible, Chen replied honestly. But if you find value in what you observe, perhaps our civilizations can learn from each other instead of one dominating the other. The Valerian warriors waited for their commander's decision, many of them clearly curious about these humans who had transformed their discarded princess into someone who spoke with unprecedented confidence and wisdom. "Father," Princess Lyra said quietly, "I know this is asking you to question everything you believed, but 3 weeks ago, I was convinced that I was worthless because that's what our society taught me. Today, I know that I possess capabilities that could benefit our entire civilization. The only difference was that humans had the courage to look beyond surface appearances and see potential where others saw only problems." She paused, then added with gentle firmness, "I'm not asking you to abandon Valerian strength. I'm asking you to discover whether that strength might be enhanced by Valerian wisdom." Ambassador Zephyr looked around at his warriors, seeing questions in their eyes that had never been there before. His daughter, whom he had discarded as a genetic failure, was demonstrating abilities that exceeded those of his finest soldiers. The humans, whom he had dismissed as weak and sentimental, had accomplished something his entire civilization had deemed impossible. They had found value in what Valerian society had discarded. Slowly, deliberately, he deactivated his energy blade. "1 week," he announced. "We will observe your civilization for 1 week. But know this, human, if I determine that your philosophy breeds weakness that could endanger the galaxy, I will not hesitate to eliminate the threat you represent." Princess Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand gently on her father's armored forearm. "Thank you, Father. I believe you're about to discover something extraordinary." Captain Chun felt relief flood through him, but he knew this was only the beginning. They had 1 week to demonstrate that humanity's approach to civilization could offer something valuable to one of the galaxy's most powerful military empires. "Ambassador," he said formally, "welcome to Terra Nova. Your quarters have been prepared, and we're honored by your willingness to observe our way of life." As the immediate crisis passed, Dr. Watson approached Princess Lyra with a question that had been troubling her. "Your Highness, weren't you taking an enormous risk? If your father had chosen to strike you down, nothing could have stopped him." Lyra smiled, an expression that held both sadness and hope. "Dr. Watson, humans taught me that some risks are worth taking because the alternative is accepting a world where worth is measured by the ability to destroy rather than create. I would rather die trying to show my father a better way than live knowing I had missed the chance to help him discover it." The first day of the Valerian observation period began with Princess Lyra leading her father and his warriors on a tour of Terra Nova's facilities. She had insisted on serving as their guide, using her enhanced senses to provide insights that normal vision would miss. "This is our medical center," she announced as they entered the facility where Dr. Watson's team had first examined her. "Here, humans use their technology not to eliminate the weak, but to help them become strong." The Valorians watched with growing fascination as human medical staff worked with colonists who had various physical challenges. Instead of the disposal facilities they expected, they found rehabilitation centers, adaptive technology workshops, and research laboratories dedicated to enhancing human capabilities. "Inefficient," commented Lieutenant Korax, Zephyr's chief tactical officer. "These resources could be used to enhance your strongest warriors instead of prolonging the existence of the weak." "Lieutenant," Princess Lyra replied, "may I show you something that might change your perspective?" She led them to the engineering section, where a team of human designers was working on improvements to spacecraft navigation systems. The lead engineer was Dr. Sarah Kim, the same woman who had developed Lyra's enhancement technology. "Dr. Kim," Lyra said, "could you explain to our Valerian guest how your team approaches problem solving?" Kim looked up from her work with enthusiasm. "Of course. We've found that our best innovations come from including team members with diverse perspectives and capabilities. For example, our breakthrough in quantum navigation came from working with engineers who process spatial relationships differently from the norm. She gestured to several team members who were clearly using adaptive technologies to interface with their work. Traditional thinking might see these individuals as limited by their differences. We see them as having unique insights that enhance our entire team's capabilities. Lieutenant Korax examined the navigation system, his tactical mind immediately recognizing its sophisticated design. This technology appears superior to standard Valorian systems. It is, Kim confirmed proudly, and it exists because we learn to value different approaches to solving problems rather than dismissing them as weakness. The tour continued through Terra and Nova's educational facilities, where Valorian warriors observed human children learning alongside peers with various capabilities and challenges. Instead of separation and elimination, they saw integration and mutual support. "The young ones with defects are not removed?" asked another Valorian officer. "They're not defects," explained Ms. Jennifer Torres, the school's principal. "They're different learners with different strengths. Many of our greatest innovators are individuals who think in ways that others might consider unusual." She introduced them to several students whose unique perspectives had led to breakthrough insights in everything from engineering to artistic expression. The Valorians watched in amazement as these young humans collaborated with their peers, each contributing something valuable to group projects. "Among our people," Lieutenant Korax admitted quietly to Princess Lyra, "such individuals would never be given the opportunity to develop their potential. And how much innovation has been lost because of that?" Lyra asked gently. "How many solutions to Valorian challenges have been discarded because they came from minds that processed information differently?" As the day progressed, Ambassador Zephyr found himself confronting questions he had never considered. The humans weren't just tolerating weakness. They were actively finding ways to transform it into strength. More disturbing to his worldview, they were accomplishing this transformation without sacrificing the capabilities of their strongest members. The evening brought the most challenging moment of the day. Princess Lyra had arranged for her father and his warriors to join a community gathering where Terra Nova's citizens shared stories, ideas, and concerns about their society's future. "This is chaos," Korax whispered to his commander as they watched humans of all ages and capabilities freely expressing their thoughts. "No order, no hierarchy, no control over who is permitted to speak." But Ambassador Zephyr was listening more carefully to the content of the conversations. Despite the apparent chaos, the humans were addressing complex problems with sophisticated solutions. Ideas flowed freely, with individuals building on each other's suggestions regardless of their apparent status or capabilities. "Father," Princess Lyra said as they watched the gathering, "do you see weakness or do you see strength?" "I see uncertainty," Zephyr replied honestly. "This approach appears to contradict everything our civilization has learned about maintaining order and efficiency. Or perhaps," Lyra suggested, "it demonstrates something our civilization has never tried to learn." The first day concluded with Ambassador Zephyr and his warriors returning to their quarters with more questions than answers. Everything they had observed challenged their fundamental assumptions about civilization, strength, and the proper treatment of those who were different. Princess Lyra stood on the observation deck of her own quarters, using her enhancement system to watch the stars through acoustic mapping of their electromagnetic signatures. For the first time in her life, she felt hope that her two peoples might find a way to learn from each other. Tomorrow would bring new revelations, new challenges to Valorian assumptions, and perhaps the beginning of a transformation that could benefit not just humans and Valorians, but countless civilizations across the galaxy. The test was far from over, but the first day had proven that even the most deeply held beliefs could be questioned when confronted with evidence that a different way of life was possible. The final day of Ambassador Zephyr's observation period had arrived, and the transformation in the Valorian delegation was unmistakable. What had begun as a mission to demonstrate superiority through force had evolved into something none of them had anticipated, a genuine learning experience that challenged every assumption they held about civilization and strength. Princess Lyra stood in the central conference room, preparing for the most important presentation of her life. Over the past week, she had worked tirelessly with Terra Nova scientists and engineers to document everything they had discovered about adaptive technology, inclusive design, and the practical benefits of embracing diversity rather than eliminating it. Captain Chun entered the room where Ambassador Zephyr and his officers waited. The change in the Valerian delegation's demeanor was remarkable. Gone was the rigid military bearing that had marked their arrival. Instead, they displayed the thoughtful attention of students preparing to hear their final lesson. "Your Highness," Chin said to Princess Lyra, "are you ready?" "I am, Captain." "Today, we discover whether the seeds of understanding we've planted this week have taken root." The holographic projector activated, filling the room with a three-dimensional display that showed comparative data from both human and Valerian societies. The information was staggering in its implications. "Father, fellow warriors," Princess Lyra began, "I want to share what we've learned about the true cost of the Valerian approach to strength and weakness." The first set of data showed innovation rates across different types of civilizations. Societies that eliminated or suppressed individuals with differences showed consistently lower rates of technological and social advancement compared to those that found ways to integrate and utilize diverse capabilities. These numbers suggest that by removing what we consider defective individuals, we've been eliminating sources of innovation and problem-solving that could have advanced our civilization by centuries, Lyra explained. Lieutenant Korax studied the data with his tactical mind. "Princess, if these projections are accurate, the Valerian Empire could have achieved our current level of technological sophistication hundreds of years earlier if we had approached population management differently." More than that, Dr. Watson added, stepping forward with additional data. "Our analysis suggests that many of the challenges currently facing Valerian society, resource distribution, environmental adaptation, even military strategy, might be solved more effectively using approaches that diverse thinking can provide." Ambassador Zephyr had remained silent throughout the presentation, but now he spoke with a voice that carried none of its earlier certainty. "You're suggesting that our entire social structure has been counterproductive to our own advancement." "I'm suggesting that strength comes in many forms," Princess Lyra replied gently. "Physical power, mental agility, emotional intelligence, creative thinking, adaptive capability, each serves a purpose in building a truly advanced civilization." She gestured to the data showing human achievements over the past week. In 7 days, humans and Valorians working together have made breakthrough discoveries in sensory enhancement technology, adaptive engineering, and inclusive design principles. These advances were only possible because we combined Valerian biological capabilities with human social innovations. The presentation continued with practical demonstrations of the technologies they had developed. Valerian warriors tested enhancement systems that augmented their natural abilities without requiring surgical modification. They experienced training programs that utilized diverse teaching methods to accelerate learning. Most importantly, they witnessed collaborative problem-solving sessions where different perspectives combined to create solutions neither culture could have achieved alone. "This is remarkable," admitted Commander Thek, Zephyr's senior science officer. "The efficiency gains from these collaborative approaches could revolutionize everything from resource management to space exploration." "But the most important discovery," Princess Lyra said, "isn't technological. It's philosophical." She paused, allowing her words to resonate before continuing. "We've learned that true strength isn't measured by our ability to eliminate those who are different. It's measured by our wisdom to recognize that differences can be gifts, and our courage to build societies that nurture every gift we discover." The room fell silent as the implications settled over the Valerian delegation. Everything they had believed about civilization and progress was being challenged by evidence they could not ignore. "Father," Princess Lyra said, turning to face Ambassador Zephyr, "I know this week has been difficult. You came here expecting to confirm Valerian superiority. Instead, You've discovered that both our civilizations have much to learn from each other. Ambassador Zephyr stood slowly, his four arms moving with a careful precision that marked deep contemplation among his people. Daughter, you have shown me something I thought impossible. You have demonstrated that what I considered weakness was actually strength I was too blind to see. The admission cost him visible effort, but he continued. More than that, you have proven that the humans possess wisdom our empire desperately needs. If these innovations and approaches could be integrated into Valerian society, the benefits would be extraordinary. Commander Thek completed the thought. We could solve resource challenges, accelerate technological development, and create a more stable and prosperous empire. Princess Lyra felt hope building in her chest. Father, does this mean you're willing to consider a true partnership between our peoples? It means, Zephyr replied with growing conviction, that I must return to Valoria immediately to share what we've learned with Emperor Thaxon himself. This cannot be a decision made by an ambassador alone. Captain Shin stepped forward. Ambassador, would you consider allowing Princess Lyra to accompany you? Her insights and the documentation she's prepared could be invaluable in explaining these concepts to your people. Yes, Zephyr said without hesitation, but not as my worthless daughter returning in shame. He turned to face Princess Lyra directly. You will return as Princess Lyra Zephyria, first ambassador of collaborative development, carrying proposals that could transform our empire. The title was unprecedented in Valerian history. Never had anyone been granted authority to propose fundamental changes to imperial policy based on collaboration with other species. Father, Princess Lyra said, emotion evident in her voice. Are you certain? This represents a complete reversal of everything you've believed about me and about our society's approach to strength. I am certain because this week has proven something I should have recognized long ago. You were never the weak daughter I thought you were. You were the gifted daughter I was too foolish to understand. Dr. Watson approached with a final gift for the princess. Your Highness, we've prepared something for your journey home. She presented a sleek case containing the most advanced version of the enhancement technology they had developed together. Unlike the crude metal device grafted to Lyra's skull, this system was elegant, comfortable, and provided capabilities that exceeded anything either civilization had previously imagined. This represents the best of both our worlds, Watson explained. Valerian biological adaptations enhanced by human engineering principles, creating abilities that surpass what either of our species could achieve alone. Princess Lyra accepted the gift with trembling hands. Dr. Watson, Captain Shun, all of you, I cannot express what these weeks have meant to me. You've given me something more valuable than enhanced senses or advanced technology. You've given me the knowledge that I have worth. Your Highness, Chen replied, you've given us something equally valuable. You've shown us that our principles and approaches can make a difference even with civilizations we thought were completely different from us. The departure ceremony was unlike anything Terra Nova had ever hosted. Instead of the formal, hierarchical proceedings typical of Valerian culture, it became a celebration of collaboration and hope. Citizens of all ages and capabilities gathered to wish Princess Lyra farewell, many of them individuals who had contributed to the technologies and innovation she would be taking home. As the Valerian ships prepared for departure, Lieutenant Rodriguez approached Captain Shun with the latest communication from Valerian space. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Word of what happened here has spread to dozens of civilizations. Several are requesting permission to send observation delegations of their own. Shun wasn't surprised. The implications of what they had accomplished went far beyond human-Valorian relations. They had demonstrated that fundamental social change was possible even in the most rigid civilizations, and that collaboration could produce benefits that exceeded what any single culture could achieve alone. Princess Lyra stood at the ramp of her father's flagship, no longer the uncertain, discarded daughter who had arrived as an unwanted gift. She wore her new enhancement system with pride, carried documentation that could revolutionize galactic civilization, and possessed the confidence that came from knowing her true worth. "Captain Chun," she called out as the boarding sequence began, "this is not goodbye. If my father and I are successful in our mission to Emperor Thaxon, this is the beginning of a partnership that will transform both our civilizations." "I believe you're right, Your Highness," Chun replied. "And I believe the galaxy is about to discover what humans and Valorians can accomplish together." Ambassador Zephyr boarded his ship with his daughter, but the relationship between them had been fundamentally transformed. Where once he had seen a burden to be hidden away, he now saw an innovator whose insights could elevate their entire empire. Where once she had believed herself worthless, Princess Lyra now understood that her differences were gifts that could benefit countless lives across the galaxy. As the Valerian fleet departed Terra Nova, they carried with them more than diplomatic agreements or technological innovations. They carried proof that strength came in infinite forms, that wisdom could emerge from the most unexpected sources, and that the greatest civilizations were those brave enough to embrace rather than fear the differences that made each individual unique. 3 months later, Captain Chun received a transmission that confirmed their greatest hopes. Emperor Thaxon himself had issued an imperial decree establishing the Department of Collaborative Development, with Princess Lyra Zephyria as its first director. The Valerian Empire was beginning the process of integrating inclusive design principles throughout their society. More importantly, Princess Lyra's report had been shared with the Galactic Council, where it sparked a revolution in how civilizations approach diversity and inclusion. Dozens of species began reassessing their own attitudes toward individuals with differences, leading to innovations and discoveries that advanced the entire galaxy's development. The unwanted gift had become the catalyst for galactic transformation. Ambassador Zephyr's cruel joke had inadvertently created the most successful diplomatic mission in human history, proving that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected sources. Princess Lyra Zephyria, once discarded as worthless by her own father, had become proof that every individual possessed value waiting to be discovered by those wise enough to look beyond surface appearances. Her story spread across the galaxy as a reminder that strength could be found in the most unlikely places, and that the true measure of civilization was not the power to eliminate differences, but the wisdom to celebrate them. The human principle of seeing worth in everyone had not only saved Terra Nova from destruction, it had provided the galaxy with a new understanding of what it meant to be truly strong. And at the center of this transformation was a princess who had learned that being different wasn't a weakness to be hidden, but a gift to be shared with the universe.